Gary's Action Man channel, George Aitken, King Eric the Great, the King Eric the greatest of all. You keep changing your name. How are we all doing? Oh, I've got an ad playing on my own live stream. Awesome. Morning, guys. .30 a.m. here in Australia. 0630 hours. Morning, George. All right. It took me forever to set this up yesterday. But I was trying to think of an interesting live stream during the week, and I was like, you know what? I actually thought I'd already done an Action Man SAS live stream, and I realised I hadn't. So I thought, why not? There's some awesome toys to share, and obviously I have a great interest in the British Special Forces, particularly the SAS. I have quite a book collection here with me as well. So. Buzzor42, how are you? Soviet Idiot. Gary's Action Man channel, good to see you. Carlos Escobar, nice to see you. Has anyone got a question? Everyone's saying hello. Any questions, anyone? What I'm going to start off talking about today is this particular Action Man figure here. Now, technically, this isn't an SAS figure. This particular Action Man uniform is called the Long Range Desert Group, which is a World War II British Army unit that fought behind enemy lines in the North African campaign. Buzzor42 Productions, where do you buy your Action Man? A lot of stuff off eBay, a few different Facebook groups. There's an excellent Facebook group called Vintage Action Man Collectors. I recommend looking there if you're trying to buy Action Man figures. George Aitken, do you think the SAS raid on the Iranian embassy helped jumpstart the SAS range? It was completely responsible for it. Absolutely. SAS Hugh, yes, I will show off my SAS customs a little bit later on. Yeah, so this guy technically isn't an SAS uniform. This was called the Long Range Desert Group set, which I believe came out in 1979. However, the Long Range Desert Group, the badge of that particular unit is a scorpion inside a steering wheel. And what's kind of unusual here, if you can see the blue and black wings on his chest there, they are SAS parachute wings. And this uniform is very reminiscent of the first SAS unit that was a commando raiding unit behind enemy lines in World War II. So that's why I've kind of got this guy here. In my mind, this is a World War II SAS guy. I know technically that it isn't. King Eric the greatest of all, are there SBS figures as well? No, there isn't. Always be nerdy. Are these before G.I. Joe? No, these are after G.I. Joe. So this came out in 1979. G.I. Joe started in 1964. Paul Richards from Bradford, West Yorkshire. Good to see you here. And hello, Tim Hayes. How are you? So I wanted to discuss this guy first because this really explains where, as I said, it's technically not an SAS outfit, but it is very, very reminiscent of the uniforms that the SAS wore in North Africa during World War II. Buzzor42 Productions says that he likes my jacket. This is what's known in the British military as a windproof smock. One of the best pieces of kit that I was ever issued in the British military is a windproof smock. Excellent piece of equipment. King Eric the Great, is the Australian SAS regiment a lot different from the British one? Not too much, no. Rob from Wolverhampton says, do you have the SAS Beachhead Attack boat? Yes, I do. I have it in the box, and that's one of the few toys I didn't bring down because it's sitting right up high on the top of the cabinet, and I didn't have I don't know, I just didn't bring it down for some reason. I have the entire Action Man SAS collection. It was one of the key sort of focus areas that I wanted to complete when I sort of started out collecting Action Man. Hayes Tucker is at a Mexican restaurant watching this. That's what you're watching on your phone, are you? That's cool. Russell from Cape Town says to not let my coffee get cold. It's all right. This is my third coffee. I actually got up about 4:30 this morning. I didn't want to be late for the stream. Gary's Action Man channel, the SAS underwater attack might have been better branded as SBS maybe. Yes, I would agree that the SAS underwater attack, I've got the box for it here, I'll bring the figure up later. Potentially, but Hasbro's marketing, this was the first time that they ever really embarked on a combat team. So I don't think they wanted to have like 3 or 4 SAS and then brand something else as SBS and sort of confuse the marketplace, so they kept everything as SAS. Master File, what does SAS stand for? It stands for the Special Air Service. The Special Air Service Regiment, of which there are 3. In Britain, you have the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment, which is the regular army, the regular army special forces. And then you have the 21st Special Air Service Regiment and the 23rd Special Air Service Regiment, which are Territorial Army reserve elements of the British Special Forces. Paul Richards, Tony, with your love of the SAS, did you ever consider trying out for selection? I'm going to answer your question, Paul, but a little bit later into the stream. I want to talk a little bit more about Action Man first and kind of how we get to that point. But that question is going into the parking lot, and I promise you I will be answering it a little bit later on. Soviet Idiot, I can hear the Who Dares Wins theme playing in my head while watching this. Funny you say that. When I made my Action Man documentary, the feature-length documentary, The Story of Action Man, the sequence where I talk about the SAS, I actually used the theme music from that movie as the soundtrack for that part of the documentary. SAS Hugh says, what is the gun to your right, our left? So this is a toy representation of a carbine. So the weapon that is actually used by the British SAS is a Demarco, which is a Canadian variant of the M4. This is a toy version that I have, because this is a toy channel, but I have painted it up and decorated it. I actually have a mannequin down in the storeroom because I have nowhere to display it in the collection room, who wears an old British Army uniform of mine, and I used to hang that from his shoulder harness. Bobby L. Collins is asking, I'm assuming you mean this figure, Bobby L. Collins, are these two-tone socks? No, they're not. They're socks with elastic gaiters. Elastic gaiters to prevent all the dirt getting inside the top of the boot. That's why people wore gaiters back in the day. King Eric, the Greatest of All, Odd Angry Shot is a great Australian movie, deals with the SAS in Vietnam. Yeah, I have that movie on DVD. That's a great movie. Bit of a black comedy as well, actually. A very cheaply made TV movie that's actually quite good and worth watching if anyone hasn't seen it. Qui-Gon John, did Palitoy ever consider marketing an Action Man figures of David Sterling or Paddy Mayne? No, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think Palitoy ever made any real-life characters for Action Man. Certainly not back in the Palitoy era. Alan Dawson, seeing your SAS library, have you read Michael Asher's book, The Real Bravo 20? I haven't read the book, Alan, but I have seen his documentary. Obviously, Bravo 20, which I have a hardcover copy of the book here. It's a very famous book from the early 90s that talks about an SAS mission that went wrong during the first Gulf War. A lot of controversy around that book. A lot of people questioning its credibility. I recommend, if you're interested in reading about that particular operation, you read this book here called Soldier 5, authored by, which the name is obviously a pseudonym, authored by a man named Mike Coburn, who was a former New Zealand Special Forces soldier who did like an exchange program to the UK and ended up on the Bravo 20 mission. This book was, I believe, published in sometime in the early 2000s. A fantastic book, probably the only book in my entire lifetime that I've read 3 or 4 times. Gaz, have I seen the film 6 Days on Netflix about the 1980s SAS raid on the Iranian embassy? Yes, I have. Alan, Soldier 5 is a great book. A great book. It really does tell the true story of what occurred on that ill-fated mission during Gulf War One. George Aitken, did Palatoy ever do a SAS Jeep for the LRDG figure? No, they didn't. However, the green armoured Jeep that's got the twin Browning 30 caliber machine guns mounted on in front of the passenger seat is ideal to customise, and basically you just got to paint it desert yellow and you've got yourself an LRDG Jeep. I have one of those Jeeps, but mine is mint original in the box. I'm not going to go and customise it. If I ever acquire a second one, I will definitely make a custom LRDG Jeep. David, are regulations as far as facial hair relaxed for SAS members? Okay, it's yes. Yeah, facial hair regulations are relaxed for Special Forces members. But sorry for laughing. I just find it interesting that that's your most pressing question. Sorry. All right, so the SAS was formed during World War II by a man named David Sterling. They were disbanded at the end of World War II, and then the 21st Special Air Service Regiment, also known as the Artist Rifles, was reformed in 1947. And then the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment, the Regular Army Special Forces, I believe reformed for the Malaya campaign. But where Action Man comes into this is in May of 1980, terrorists seized control of the Iranian embassy at Prince's Gate in London. It's a very famous international terrorist incident that occurred, and on the 6th day of the siege, the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment raided the building, killing and capturing all of the terrorists and rescuing, I think, all but one of the hostages. That raid was broadcast on national news, and in that operation, the guys were dressed similar to this here in their counter-terrorist outfit of black jumpsuits, grey flash hoods, gas masks, flak vests, and armed with MP5 submachine guns. It was an international event. It brought a lot of attention to the SAS, so much so that Palatoy very quickly decided that they needed to make an SAS Action Man figure, which they did. And from the people I interviewed for my Action Man documentary, they say that they actually got the first outfit, and I believe the first outfit was actually the one on the green Action Man Experts card. I don't have that one here to show you. And then followed up the following year with the SAS key figure, who I have in the box here, and a number of outfits. Tony Nasser, he remembers watching that on the news in Australia. Yeah, I was too young to remember it on the news. I would have been 3 years old at the time. Actually, almost 3 years old at the time. But it propelled the SAS into the public consciousness. Everyone became interested in the regiment. People wanted to learn more about it. It was very mysterious. Scuba Pete, thank you very much for the super chat. Such a badass figure. Yes, he is a very badass figure. So he's got his rope and grappling hook. He has an ammo belt and pistol and holster there, and his Heckler and Koch MP5 submachine gun. George Aitken, he can remember watching Rio Bravo with John Wayne on TV, and then the TV channel cut to the actual siege itself. So, Bobby L. Collins is asking about the super chat issue. As far as I'm aware, Bobby, that only occurred on one Retroblasting live stream, and I believe it's been fixed. It hasn't been an issue for me. King Eric, the greatest of all. Yes, the figure is wearing a flak jacket. This is made through a simple process of a small piece of foam with vinyl, 2 pieces of vinyl sandwiched over the top and then welded together around the edges. Yeah, so the attention that the siege at the Iranian embassy brought and the subsequent raid known as Operation Nimrod, it was an overwhelming success. You know, the SAS, as I said, I believe they rescued all but one of the hostages, killed and captured all the other terrorists. And everyone became interested in this mysterious, just badass unit. And when I was a young child, I was already into Action Man before I first laid eyes on the Action Man SAS key figure, and he very quickly became my absolute favourite Action Man figure. Tony Nasser, he has the SAS G.I. Joe figure named Big Ben. Yeah, Big Ben is very reminiscent, I suppose, of more like a Falklands War era SAS figure. And that's what this custom guy at the back here, I've kind of done him up a little bit like an SAS guy in the Falklands, maybe raiding Pebble Island or something like that. SAS Hugh, what movie is on Netflix about the Iranian embassy siege? It's called 6 Days, starring Janie Bell. That American Kid, I recently acquired a complete G.I. Joe Jeep for my birthday last week. It's such a great toy. That's awesome, man. Well done. And happy birthday for last week too. Bustle 42, can you put your gear on? Not without knocking everything over. No, I'm not going to. ER is asking, do I have the Israeli paratrooper Action Man? No, I don't. That's quite a rare figure, which was never released in the UK market. I believe that was a Group Action Joe figure released in France, I think, or somewhere in Europe. That's not one that I have, but I would like to acquire that for my collection. John Kenny, they'd been around since the Borneo in their current form. What do you think about the rumours they were in Vietnam? Are you talking about the SAS in Vietnam? Because they're not rumours. The Australian SAS was in Vietnam. And I have a book here called Phantoms of the Jungle, which is an excellent book about the history of the Australian Special Air Service and their operations in Vietnam during that conflict. Matt Ludi, did I ever meet any SAS guys in my former profession? Yes, I did. A few. Palatoy developed the SAS line, but did they develop a line connected to the Falklands, which was only 2 years later? No, they didn't, Qui-Gon Jinn. They didn't, because when you think about it, you know, so the Royal Marines fought in the Falklands, as did the Parachute Regiment, and they had already made outfits of those sort of things. But also by that time as well, the Falklands was 1982. The SAS was the most popular military sets for Action Man at the time, and everything else was going into, or starting to go into, the Special Team, the Space Rangers were becoming quite popular, that kind of thing. How accurate are Vintage Toy Rush? How accurate are the SAS outfits? Are there any items Palitoy missed or should have included? I think they're fairly accurate for the time. One thing is that the way these guys were shown on TV when they raided the Iranian embassy, it looked like they were all in black, but they're actually wearing very, very dark green outfits. They weren't actually dressed in black. But this is, at the time, this was called counter-revolutionary warfare, what we know better today as anti-terrorist warfare. Australian soldiers called their tanks koalas in Vietnam because they were not to be taken of the country and not to. I'm not sure what you mean, George. Sorry. Bussaw 42 Productions. Can you make stop motion with your figures? I kind of know a bit about how to do it, but stop motion is extremely time consuming and is also something that doesn't particularly interest me. I prefer a more documentary style format to my videos. Soviet Idiot, I love how knowledgeable you are about the SAS. Thank you very much. I've read a lot of books. Magnificent Kaboom, Analog Toys does great work. Looking forward to Action Man diorama and/or G.I. Joe play motion crossover, reenacting real life combat experiences. Analog Toys was an actual soldier. Thank you very much. Outfits are pretty much back boiler suits with grey hood, cut off, and NBC smock #1 Mark II. Yeah. Okay, so some of the other outfits here. So I haven't got all of this guy's accessories on the table. I do have them. They're up in the cabinet. This was called the SAS Secret Mission, and I have the box for this here. I actually purchased this at a toy show in London when I first moved back to the UK. One thing I really liked about Palitoy's SAS line was how the uniformity between all of the packaging. Up until this point, most Action Man outfits, barring maybe Secret Mission to Dragon Island, were all sold on cards with like a blister that showed all of the accessories and outfits. I don't know why they didn't do that with the SAS. Maybe they really liked Dave Barnickel's artwork. Perhaps it was to expedite, the speed at which they could get them into the market. Or maybe because of the fact that they came with so many accessories, to put them on a blister card, the boxes would have ended up really big. Probably a little bit more like the Special Team boxes. But I do really like the boxes. I have them all. I have the box for the helicopter and the beachhead attack as well. So there's the one for the parachute attack. The back of all of the boxes looks the same. Yes, I love the artwork. I've met the original artist, Dave Barnickel, a number of times. A huge fan of his work. As I said, this is one of my favourite Action Man figure boxes, the SAS key figure here. So this particular guy, he does differ slightly from the key figure that's in this box. So this was the first issue one, who also included a belt, an ammo pouch, a pistol and holster. The one in this box, I can't remember if he has the rope and grappling hook, but he doesn't have the belt, the ammo pouch, the pistol holster and pistol. He also has a different, more advanced from a manufacturing perspective, his flak vest, where it's still a sandwich of two pieces of flexible vinyl, sandwiched over some foam, but there's some added detail printed into it during the welding process. Yes, it is beautiful packaging, Tony. Buzzsaw 42, did you serve in the UK or Australia? I served in both armies. I'll get onto that in a bit. Biker Scout 74, is it the case that once a candidate passes the selection tests, or it's a selection course, they have to train in every theatre of warfare, desert, Arctic, jungle, counter-terrorism, or can they specialise in one area? No, they specialise in insertion methods. So part of the selection course is that you go to the jungle, you have to go through the jungle phase. Beyond that, just through your normal career, you'll more than likely go to the Arctic and the desert and all that. But that's not what they specialise in. They specialise in insertion methods. So whether that be parachuting, called air troop, mobility, mountain, or boat troop. Buzzsaw 42 Productions. No, I'm not going to talk about the Action Force SAS in this particular live stream. This is just about Action Man, this one. Soviet idiot. I believe nobody escapes and evades successfully in SAS selections. No, because they all end up having to get captured and going through a phase called resistance to interrogation. Okay, so let's show you guys the other SAS outfit. So that's the secret mission. This guy actually came with a large black pod that you could put all the equipment inside, strap the pod up, and could be carried into combat via air, via the helicopter or whatever. I'll move him out of the way. And then we get to the underwater attack, also known as the SAS Frogman. I dropped a video last year, I believe. So anyone who collects Action Man knows that the original Frogman suits, they're made of a very thin rubber, a lot like dishwashing gloves, that perish over time. My one had perished, and then I found through Cotswold Collectibles, a great American company that sells a lot of G.I. Joe, 12-inch G.I. Joe product. They had recreated these black Frogman suits actually using neoprene, the real material that was used, the material that's used on real scuba diving wetsuits. So this is the basic Action Man Frogman, just with extra equipment. So he's got a nice diving knife on the front there. He's got a pair of bolt cutters. He's got a different style of swim fins. And a flak vest that sits over his, and this vest is different to the flak vest worn by the other guys. This one just sits over the front of his chest and torso. It doesn't cover his back because obviously he's got the scuba tanks. So there's the scuba diving SAS guy just for Scuba Pete. Michael Herring, Tony, when was Action Man released? Firstly released in 1966, but if you want to understand more about Action Man, I say this in every live stream, go and watch my Action Man documentary. It's a 3-part series. It's a feature-length documentary describing the whole history of Action Man. It'll tell you when all the different outfits came out. Buzzsaw 42 Productions, do you have the helicopter? Yeah, I've already said I have all of the Action Man SAS toys. I've got the helicopter down here. I'll show that in a moment. Alright, so we'll get this guy out of the way. And then we have the Action Man Para Attack. This one's super cool. It's a high altitude parachutist. The helmet has a really cool green visor that flips up and down, as as you can see here. This guy's armed with an M16 as opposed to the MP5 submachine gun. Scuba Pete, thank you again for the super chat. Yes, he looks amazing. He also comes with a very large parachute that supposedly works, but it doesn't work that well. None of the Action Man parachutists really work that well. You really have to get them up to quite a height to get them to work properly. John Kenny, thank you very much. He says, I give you guys a unique perspective being an ex-soldier. I hope so. I hope so. I think this is going to be a fun live stream where there's a lot more to talk about yet. All right, so they're the main combat team figures. So the key figure, the underwater attack, the secret mission, and the parachute attack. I have also made. Oh no, there's one more guy here. I forgot. This is the Action Man Talking Commander. This particular figure was a staple of the range for many, many years. And prior to the popularity of the SAS, the cap badge of his officer's cap, it was always the cap badge of the 17th, 21st Lancers. With the popularity of the SAS range, I believe around 1983, they released the Action Man Talking Commander again, but they changed the cap badge to be a silver SAS badge, as you can see there. Quite a desirable piece to collect today. It's not easy to get an Action Man Talking Commander with the SAS cap badge as opposed to the Lancers cap badge, I should say. So yeah, so the Action Man Talking Commander in the early 80s became the commander of the SAS unit. Connor Wheaton, what is your favourite Action Man figure? It's a really hard question for me to answer, but the SAS key figure is up there with one of my favourites. Salvador says, what's the mantra? Those who dare? No, the motto of the regiment is who dares wins. For anyone who saw Action Force Part 2 on the SAS line, a video where we collaborated with Retroblasting for the first time, one of the toys in that set was called the SAS Silent Attack, where the guy, where the figure comes in a small kayak. And I loved that set when I was a kid, so much so that I eventually made a 12-inch custom of that particular set. So this is my custom of the action. So this is my Action Man Silent Attack set. With the canoe, he's got a kayak, not canoe. He's got a kayak with a Browning 30 caliber machine gun on it. Something that wouldn't really be practical in real life, but I thought it looked pretty cool. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. That American Kid, have you checked out the new Action Man Repro figs from Hasbro? They're nothing like the 70s ones, but they're pretty cool. Yeah, I've seen those. Thanks, Keith. I made this custom years ago, and I do really, really like it. I probably should have dusted this off. It needs a good dusting. Yeah, it's got a searchlight on the back. There's a little clipboard for his map. It's got ammo cases strapped on. Yeah, it's a cool piece. I like it. I'm going to struggle to get out of here later on today. Yes, Soviet Idiot. On the SAS segment of your Story of Action Man documentary, did you make the diorama or something else? Yes, I did make the diorama. It's actually, I purchased a doll's house, and which was all pink and purple when I got it, and I repainted it all. King Eric the Greatest of All, weren't the kayaks usually two-man? I believe they had both, two-man and one-man. But in the vintage toy market, there isn't a two-man kayak available. That is actually, that kayak was made by a rival company called Shirley that didn't make Action Man figures in the 70s, but they made vehicles to fit Action Man's scale, and they made a kayak, something that Palitoy never did. So I saw a unique opportunity to take a Shirley kayak, which I owned, and turn it into a silent attack. Brian Dillingham, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, great channel. Kev R. Williams, what time is it in Australia? Well, it depends what part of Australia you're in. I'm in Western Australia, and it is 4 minutes past 7 in the morning. Tony Nassar says it's just after 9 o'clock. He must be on the East Coast. Yeah, Brisbane. Gary's Action Man channel. Did Shirley make an SAS motorcycle? I don't believe so, Gary. Not that I'm aware of. So as I said, that they also made two vehicles for the SAS. Palitoy did. They made the Beachhead Assault Craft, which was a large sort of inflatable landing craft. Inflatable in real life. The toy wasn't inflatable. It was blow molded. I have that in the box, but as I mentioned earlier, it's at the top of my cabinet, so I can't get it out. But they also made the SAS Airstrike helicopter, which I have here. A very large piece, a very cool piece. Hard to acquire, in good condition with all of the stickers. Again, I probably should have dusted this one off a little bit as well. But yeah, SAS, it's all holds a single pilot figure, and then you can have a couple of SAS key figures kind of hanging off each side of the landing skids there. Yeah, Pete, it is huge. It's a great toy. Based off of the, I believe it was Hasbro who made the first G.I. Joe helicopter, which was a very simple helicopter that then, which I believe was yellow as well, it was made for the Adventure Team. When it was brought into the Action Man line, it was an olive drab green colour. And then Palitoy, over the years, they made a number of variations of the helicopter, with this being the final one. But there was also the Capture Copter, the Assault Copter. There was a number of different helicopters that used the main shell and then were moulded in different coloured plastics with a variety of different attachments. The most unique thing about this is the inflatable landing skids on it, as opposed to just the standard skids. Yeah, not quite as big as the flag. But yeah, I thought I'd share that with you guys as well. Biker Scout 74 says, wow, the sound of those blades really brought me back to my childhood. That was one of my favourite Action Man vehicles. Awesome. Yes, Scuba Pete, it does look really good in SAS team colours. It really does. Alright guys, I know I've shown you the toys, and we've kind of got through it a little bit quickly because I want to talk about a bit of other stuff today, I suppose. I believe I got my first Action Man SAS key figure when I was around 5 years old, somewhere around 1982. I was already obsessed with Action Man toys as they were, and the SAS key figure just took that obsession to a whole other level. And from the age of 5, having an Action Man SAS figure, all I ever wanted to do was join the military, and specifically join the Special Forces. I was also inspired by things like the movie Who Dares Wins, which you look back at it now, it's perhaps not the greatest film, but it stars Lewis Collins from the TV show The Professionals, where it was obviously heavily inspired by the Iranian embassy siege and the subsequent raid. But this is a fictionalized story where the SAS, in their counter-revolutionary warfare unit, storm an embassy of sorts. Cool movie. I loved this as a kid, and I used to watch it all the time. George Aiken says, Keith, if he wins the lottery, he's sending Tony a flag. Thank you very much, George, but not necessary. I don't know where I'm going to put it. Yeah, so when I was a child, I was heavily inspired by these toys, and my connection to the Action Man SAS line goes far beyond simple childhood nostalgia. It really did change the course of my adult life. And Alan Dawson, Tony, next time you come to the UK, I will take you to the location where the Hare and Hound selection sequence was filmed. Thanks, Alan. I wouldn't be surprised if I've possibly already been there. I've spent a lot of time in Wales marching over those mountains. I don't know exactly where that is, but I wouldn't be surprised if I've been there. So when I was 11 years old, my family emigrated to Australia. I did my high school over here. We became Australian citizens. And before I even finished high school, I actually had 6 months of high school to go. I enlisted in the Australian Army and became a combat engineer, where I spent the next 4 years of my life. But that was during the 1990s, where there kind of wasn't a lot of stuff going on. I was also a very... I believe I was a bit too young mentally to be joining the army at that time. As I joined as soon as I turned 17, I'd never lived out of home before, and I wasn't the greatest of soldiers, I would say. And after my 4 years service, I got out of the army. A few years went by of living in Perth, sort of kind of dead-end jobs, driving forklifts and different things. I decided to go travelling, and I went backpacking for a year and eventually found myself back in the United Kingdom in the summer of 2001. Well, anyone who remembers the year 2001 knows that towards the end of the summer, in September, there was an event that we just simply know now as September 11. By that stage, I was a little bit older. I'd grown up a bit. I was a bit more worldly wise, a bit more streetwise, I suppose. And as soon as September 11 had happened, I was, as I said, living back in the UK. I decided to re-enlist in the military, or enlist in the British military anyway. And the first unit I joined was Princess of Wales Royal Regiment. I have the badge of the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment on my t-shirt here. The Princess of Wales Royal Regiment is an infantry regiment which was formerly known as the Sussex Rifles. I didn't spend too long with the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment. I remember sort of going through some training sessions, and because I'd had previous experience, they kind of fast-tracked my training. And I went to Catterick for a combat infantryman's course, which I attended. And at the end of that course, we had a session where a recruitment team from the United Kingdom Special Forces came in at the end of that combat infantryman's course, trying to encourage people to apply for Special Forces selection. And at the time, I was well aware of the SAS. I had read a lot of these books. I'd read Bravo 20, I believe, sometime when I was in the Australian Army in my late teens. I knew a lot about the SAS, but what I was not aware of was that there was a reserve element to the SAS. At the time when I was with Princess of Wales Royal Regiment, I was a reservist. It was the Territorial Army, which is what the British Army called their Army Reserve. G.I. Joe Immortal, did you keep some of your gear from your service? Yeah, I'm wearing my smock now. A lot of this stuff is from my service. I've got a lot of stuff. Yeah, so I was not aware that the British SAS had a reserve element until I attended this course and was told about you could go on selection to join either 2-1 or 2-3 SAS or attempt to join. And I was very, very interested, and I gave them my contact details, and they said they would kind of send some information out in the post on sort of how and where to apply. And then I returned home, returned to my infantry company with the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment, and kind of thought nothing more about it. And then it was about 2 weeks later. I can't remember if I got a letter or a phone call. I believe it was a letter requesting that I attended a military location in the centre of London that coming weekend for a medical test to go on to selection. And I never even really had the time to properly sit down and think about it and consider it. I was like, yeah, okay, let's go and have a go. Now, the British Special Forces selection course, they only run 2 a year. That's called, you either do winter selection or summer selection. I attended this this location in London and did some medical testing, some fitness testing. I had to go up there several times over the next sort of few weeks and months. And yeah, before I knew it, I was on Special Forces selection, trying to join the 21st Special Air Service Regiment. The SAS selection course is one of the, it's known as the toughest selection military special forces selection course in the world. You start off with a phase called they call it the aptitude test, where you spend a long time in the Brecon Beacon Mountains in Wales, where they are testing your self-motivation, your drive. You have to go out day after day, marching 20 kilometres, 30 kilometres, 35 kilometres, through very, very harsh terrain, up and down mountains, carrying heavier and heavier weights on your back each day. And a lot of people fail the course. I believe on my course we had around 184, I believe, on day one of selection. And we were down to 55 by the end of the hills phase. Yes. Keith Knight, he was a police officer in the Met and he did some training with PWR at the Canterbury Barracks. That's awesome. So over the course of the 4 years that I've run this channel, a lot of people have asked me about my military service, and I've alluded to it. I've never really been quite open about it, and I've finally decided that now is the time to open up, I suppose, to the audience about it. And in 2002, I believe, 2000, I don't even remember now, somewhere then, I passed the British Special Forces selection course and was awarded the famous Sandy Beret and became a member of the 21st Special Air Service Regiment. Still fits like a glove. Although the SAS stable belt that I have here does not fit like a glove, because I think at the time, I think I had about a 32-inch waist, and now it's about 38 inches. And even though that's adjustable, I've got it on full extension, and I can't fit it around my waist. King Eric the Greatest of All, good on you, Tony. I served with the Seaforth Highlanders of Canada. Excellent. No, Alan, that's right. Your head doesn't put on weight. Yeah. Yes, red shirts. There is a certain way that you wear a beret, and you can instantly spot it when someone doesn't wear a beret correctly. Yes, that is the belt on the figure behind me. So in the British military, this is called a stable belt. All the different regiments, the belts are different colours with different styles of buckles. The SAS one is is a royal blue with a silver buckle that has the SAS badge on the buckle, if you can see that. Venkman, thank you very much for the super chat. It says, hey Tony, you're looking sharp. Yeah, I don't know. It brings back a lot of memories every time I don. I often will wear this beret on Anzac Day in Australia, which is a military commemorative day we have here in Australia. But it's been a long time since I've ever worn my windproof smock, my Special Forces smock. It's funny looking at myself in the reflection there. It takes me back a ways. So. Michael Schaefer, sorry I'm late. Thank you again, Tony, for your service. You're very welcome. Man, I kept hoping that you'd put that beret on. Yeah, I had it here waiting in the wings. I was getting ready to put it on. Some of the other items in the background here. This is the plate carrier that I wore for several years in Iraq. And the helmet that I also wore. I don't know how well you can see that. There's a tab there that says NKA. That stands for no known allergies. That's if I need to be treated by a combat medic. They know that I have no known allergies, such as an allergy to penicillin or anything like that. And then the other tab on this side here is O positive, which is my blood group. That American kid, can you try on the helmet? No, I'd rather not put the helmet on because it's pretty uncomfortable. I don't like to wear that helmet. Keith Holmesley, you're very welcome. So yeah, it's when I first went to make the documentary about Action Man, I knew I could not make it without the involvement of people like Bob Breakin, and I was trying to get in touch with him. You know, I don't know if Bob was on Facebook at the time or anything like that. But there's a museum in London called the V&A Museum of Childhood, and I was aware that when Palatoid closed down, they'd been given a lot of the stuff from their design department when the factory was closed down. They also had a lot of transcripted interviews on their website for this museum where they had interviewed people like Bob Breakin and other key Palatoid personalities. So I reached out to that museum asking if they could put me in touch with Bob Breakin. And they said that, look, they wouldn't give out his contact details. However, if I would like to write him a letter, they would forward on the letter. So in the letter, I wrote to Bob about my passion for Action Man and how it had inspired me to later in life join the British Special Forces and serve all over the world. A lot of time spent in Iraq. And Bob told me later that was one of the key things that really made him want to work with me on this documentary. It was someone who didn't simply just have a passion for the toys, but also had a military history that I could draw on when talking about because Action Man isn't solely a military toy, but obviously that was a predominantly large part of it. So, Buzzsaw 42 Productions. What rank were you in the army? I was a Special Forces trooper. Keith Knight, huge respects, Tony, the finest fighting force in the world. Endless thanks for your service. You are very, very welcome. G.I. Joe Immortal, did you go to jump training and how was it if you did? Yes, every Special Forces soldier must get parachute trained. We don't all get trained for high altitude parachuting. I have not done high altitude parachuting. I actually think I would quite struggle. I don't equalise my ears very well. I also struggle with diving because of that. But yes, I am parachute trained. Super Dimension Photo, for a real deal Action Man, you're a pretty mellow dude who likes to chat about toys. Yeah, I've been retired from the military for a long time, and I really believe my passion for toys was something that I was able to immerse myself in to get over some of the mental health challenges I think I had when I left the military, and probably had when I was still serving, to be honest. How does it feel getting back into uniform? You still look like you're ready for theatre. Amazing how a toy can define your whole life and career. It feels a bit strange getting into this, and what certainly feels strange is wearing this in a public space on YouTube. So, but at the same time, look, the people, thanking me for my service and all this kind of thing. But I don't want to pretend to be anything that I'm not. So I want to clearly explain that the 21st Special Air Service Regiment is a reserve element of the SAS. We are what Americans may refer to as Tier 2 Special Forces, not Tier 1. Tier 1 is the regular guys, the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment. And there are a lot of differences between the two. For example, the reservists, as much as I love the SAS key figure and all the black-clad uniforms and submachine guns, we don't get trained in the counter-revolutionary warfare or the counter-terrorism work. We do a lot of surveillance and reconnaissance type work. Chris Miwa is thanking me for my service. Everyone who wants to thank me for my service, all I want to say is you're welcome. I don't feel like I need to be thanked for my service. It's something that I wanted to do, and I never did it for any thanks. Sonic Imperium, what other special forces did you work with? SEALs, Rangers, or other countries? So I worked with the, and apologies for any Western Europeans who I'm going to maybe mispronounce this. So I did my Arctic warfare training with the Swedish Special Forces, who I believe were called the Fallschirmjägerskola. If I mispronounce that, I apologise. So I worked with those guys. They were very, very good at teaching me how to conduct combat whilst on telemark skis, cross-country skis, how to live in the Arctic. I also worked in Iraq with ODA, so Operation Deployment Alpha, which are American Green Berets. And I particularly enjoyed working with the American ODA. That was a real pleasure to work with American Green Berets. Soviet Idiot, do reservists get a chance to switch to the 22nd Special Air Service? Yes, they do, but they have to attend selection for a second time because the selection course is it's significantly different. The reservists only do parts of the full-time the selection course required to get into 22 SAS. Vintage Toy Rush, thank you very much. My Swedish partner says you were spot on with the pronunciation. That's good to know. I believe I did my Arctic warfare training in Sweden sometime around 2004 or 5. So it's probably been a long time since I've ever pronounced Fallschirmjägerskola. But yeah, they were some great guys to work with. I probably should have mentioned at the start of this live stream that I may swear, because sometimes when I go into military mode, I do that. So yeah, my memories of Arctic warfare training were that it was fucking cold. The coldest I've ever been in my life. I think I ended up in temperatures of about minus 38 degrees, minus 39 degrees. Incredibly cold. And that's Celsius as well, not Fahrenheit. Rich Hawkins says I'm a friggin' legend. Appreciate the comment, but I don't believe I'm a legend. Not by a long stretch. Tony, is there a big rivalry between the SAS and the SBS? There's a healthy rivalry, but I believe that the two units work alongside each other pretty well. They all go on the same selection course, so whether you want to join the SBS or the SAS, you go on the same selection course. Some of the training that you'll obviously do after the selection course is quite different. Keith Knight, you're far too modest, my friend. The reserve or regular, every time you stick the uniform on, you represent the difference between good and evil. You're a constant target regardless of your deployment. Yeah, thank you, Keith. Bobby L. Collins. Tony is currently a 1-to-1 scaled Action Man figure. Craig S. says, the figure behind my right shoulder is very sharp. What is it and can you bring it closer to the camera? Yeah, I can. So this is a custom that I made of an SAS sergeant in dress uniform. So he's wearing a custom-made SAS stable belt, a 1/6 scale version of what I have here. I made this using the uniform for the British officer uniform from the famous British uniforms range. I put some different badges on there. I custom made the belt, and then with the beret, I took an original black Action Man beret and then had it reflocked by another customizer, and affixed as opposed to the metal badge here. So the Australian SAS actually wear a metal badge on their beret. The British SAS wear a fabric embroidered badge on the beret. Thank you very much, Keith. I appreciate that. Thank you for this, Tony. Who dares wins, fella? Yeah, I appreciate it. And Scuba Pete commenting on the custom. Thank you very much. All right, so we've been going for 61 minutes. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask? Tony, can you tell something about the ranks within the SAS? Yeah, so the lowest rank in the SAS, which in a lot of other units, in a military unit, would be a private. You're called a trooper, but the level of training you have to become a trooper, you're almost equivalent to more like a corporal in the rest of the British Army. But then from there, it's just standard military rank. So from a trooper to a lance corporal, a sergeant, a staff sergeant, a sergeant major, etc. Have the SAS ever used the SIG 510 rifle that was included with the SAS assault boat set? I can't say for sure. I never came across that rifle during my service, Gary. I'm not sure. A world made of cardboard. Thank you very much for the super chat. With your military experience, how accurate are the Action Man toys? They're certainly not perfect. I think a lot of the uniforms they got around 80 to 90% correct, but given the kind of manufacturing processes that were available to them at the time, they couldn't be much more accurate than what they are. There are a few sort of glaring mistakes made throughout the history of Action Man toys. For example, and actually this isn't even Palitoy's fault, this sort of stemmed from G.I. Joe, but when they made was it the Soldiers of the World or the Soldiers of the Century? I always get them confused. When they made the original German Stormtrooper figure back in the 60s, he had the ammunition pouches for a Mauser rifle, but he was armed with an MP40 submachine gun. That particular uniform should have had a different set of ammo pouches on it. So there are mistakes along the way, but for the most part, they were pretty good at getting things accurate. Clay 3613. I know I asked twice earlier. Sorry to spam. That's all good. If I didn't answer your question, throw it up again. I really struggle to keep up with some of these questions. But I'm really into watch videos about armed forces, weapons and camo patterns. What camo were you issued, or do you not remember the name? As far as I'm aware, this is just called British DPM, British Disruptive Pattern Camouflage. I think they called it the Soldier 2000 series. The British Army wear a different camouflage pattern these days, but I had left the army by the time that new camouflage uniform came about. This is the British DPM that I wore when I served. Keith Knight, does the SAF have their own MPs, or do you all fall under the RMP Reb Caps? No, they don't have their own MPs, and I don't really believe that the regiment needs MPs. The kind of discipline required to join the special forces, and you end up with guys who, yeah, pretty good at behaving. Well, maybe not behaving all the time, but. Tony Nassar, thank you for the super chat. This has been an awesome live stream, Tony. Thanks for the insight into Action Man and sharing your experiences. You're very welcome, Tony. No, Gary, there is no Provost Sergeant in the SAS. Buzzsaw 42 Productions, did you shoot guns in the reserves? Well, first of all, we don't call them guns. They're either rifles, pistols. A gun is a large cannon. I normally call it a weapon system, and thousands upon thousands of rounds, live rounds, are fired just during the continuation training phase of the selection course before you even get badged. So, Soviet Idiot, can you recall the moment when they finally presented your beret? Are you asking if I remember, or are you asking me to recount the story? It's very anticlimactic. So for the Special Forces Reserve, when you go through the selection course, as I said, you go through the aptitude phase where you spend a lot of time in Wales, not only on the Brecon Beacon Mountains, you also go to places like Elan Valley, which is just a boggy, horrible, horrible place to try and navigate and march through on your own. Once you get through the aptitude phase, you then go on to a phase called continuation training, where you start to learn Special Forces fieldcraft and tactics, various weapon systems, patrolling skills, a variety of different things. And at the end of which you have to go into a phase called resistance to interrogation. The regular unit, I believe, does 36 hours of RTI, or resistance to interrogation. The reservists do 24 hours, where you are captured. I was taken to a military base. I won't mention the name of it. I remember spending hours and hours and hours sitting down cross-legged in the back of a Bedford truck, freezing cold, with a wet sandbag tied over my head, so that I couldn't see, and spent hours in the back of this truck being taken to this location that is run by British military intelligence, where you are then stripped of your uniform. You are put into overalls and made to wear a blindfold and sit down in a variety of stress positions, which a stress position, for example, may be to sit down cross-legged with your hands on your head, blindfolded, listening to white noise, static. It's very confusing. You're already exhausted, dehydrated, extremely hungry, and you can spend hours and hours and hours in these various stress positions, which are then broken up with a variety of different interrogations. Each interrogation you go through in the 24-hour period is conducted in a different room with a different interrogator who uses different tactics. Some are angry and scream and shout at you. Others are very calm and logical and try and befriend you to try and get some information out of you. But you can only give them what is called the Big Six. Used to be the Big Four, now the Big Six. And that refers to name, rank, serial number, date of birth, blood group, and religion. I believe when it used to be the Big Four, I don't believe you used to be able to have to give them your blood group or religion. Beyond that, you can't give them any information. It's a fucking horrendous part of the course, one of the hardest parts of the course. A lot of people do not have the mental robustness to get through it. They put their hand up and they voluntarily withdraw from the course during the resistance to interrogation phase. I had no concept of how long I had been in there. There's no concept of time. I didn't know it was supposed to be 24 hours going into it. I didn't know if I'd been there for 5 hours or 20 hours. I had no idea. But I remember I had gone through about 6 or 7 different interrogations. So probably an interrogation, I probably spent 3 hours in a stress position, blindfolded, with very little food or anything to drink. Then you go to an interrogation, which may go for 10 minutes or 30 minutes. Then you go back into stress positions again. And I believe I was on the verge of quitting when I got brought up. I got told to stand up, and I was getting walked away, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going for another interrogation. Like, when in the hell is this going to be over?" And walking into an interrogation room and being when normally the interrogators would remove your blindfold, I remember being told to remove my own blindfold, which I subsequently did. And when I opened it, the person standing in front of me was one of the instructors from the selection course, one of the staff, who asked me if I recognised him. I said that I did. He asked me what his name was. I told him his name. I think he was trying to get a gauge of quite how disorientated that I was. And then he handed over the beret, and quite unceremoniously, he simply said to me, "It's harder to keep it than it is to earn it." And he walked out of the room, and that was it. There's no big parade. Your parents don't come, anything like that. I just got handed it, and I was so exhausted. I don't even know what kind of. I don't think I felt any kind of emotion at the time. It was sort of after I'd got some much well-earned sleep and rest, and when I sort of got up afterwards, I remember phoning my dad, who was in Australia, and telling him that I had passed the course and had become what was known at the time was a badged member of the SAS. So I know I talked a lot then. I don't know what questions I missed, but so I'm just going to go back here. So, Soviet Idiot, yeah, there you go. I just recalled the moment that they finally presented me with my beret. What is the relationship like between EM and officers in the SAS? Is it the same as other regiments? Biker Scout 74, what do you mean by EM? Are you talking about enlisted men? Special Forces is very different. So there is rank and there is structure, but we don't salute each other. We actually very rarely wear our berets. Everyone's on first name basis. You don't call officers sir. If anything, you just refer to them as boss. It's a much more relaxed environment where every soldier at every level of rank is allowed to have an opinion and give input. And that's one of the things I enjoyed most about the Special Forces, was that everyone was encouraged to contribute their ideas to how operations should be conducted in the planning phase. King Eric, the greatest of all, Tony, what do you think of the reality show that Ant Middleton hosts? I must admit, I do watch that show from time to time. I was actually watching an episode a couple of days ago. It's from an older show, but someone's uploaded it to YouTube. I watch it. I find it a bit interesting, but what I will say is there is a lot of stuff that they do on that show that you actually never ever do on selection. The milling that they do, the boxing that they do, you don't do that on selection. The murder ball they don't do on selection. But they need to change things up in each episode. I understand that they have to make changes to make it entertaining. To make a six. I think most series are about 6 or 8 parts, 6 parts. To make a 6-part TV series where week after week after week people are just marching across the Brecon Beacon Mountains, it's not very entertaining. So, That American Kid, have you ever got any haters on your channel? The odd one or two, but just block them, delete them, and move on. Keith Holmesley, I've always heard people say I wasn't a colonel, I was a sergeant, I worked for a living. What does that mean? So in the British Army, enlisted men are what we call non-commissioned officers, and officers are people, they go through a different set of training to get into the military. Officers go to officer training school. They are somewhat privileged to a degree in the military. So when a sergeant says, so a non-commissioned officer, you do not call them sir until they become a sergeant major, which is the highest sort of enlisted rank you can reach. So when someone calls a sergeant, refers to a sergeant and addresses them as sir, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to call them sergeant. So when they address them as sir, they say, "Don't call me sir. I work for a living," meaning I'm not privileged. I'm not an officer. Phil Chadwick, what's the colour of the boathouse in Hereford? What fucking boathouse? But I know what you mean. Dave Steengrass, on a lighter note, what's the best military ration you've eaten? Oh, I think a boiled bag of lamb and rosemary. Lamb, rosemary and potato, I think it is. King Eric, you're very welcome. He's saying, thanks for sharing this, Tony, means a lot. As an American, Bobby L. Collins says, as an American, what little I know about British military comes from Blackadder, Doctor Who, and this live stream. It's an honour to be a part of that trio: Blackadder, Doctor Who, and Analog Toys. Man, thank you very much for that. I like that. Blacksaw 42 Production says nearly 100 likes. I'm looking now and it says 102, but also 2 dislikes. So fuck those guys. George Aiken says rations in the army must be better than I get in hospital. I work because I don't think it could get any worse. Actually, I don't mind. You know, I'd rather have a nice home cooked meal by Gracie. But I never minded British military rations too much. You know, there are certain. So British military rations, we have what we call boil in the bag. So they comes in a foil bag. You put it into your mess tin, boil it up with water, take it out, rip open the top of the bag, and you just eat out of this like aluminium foil bag. And then you use the boiled water to make your brew, your tea, your coffee, whatever it is you want to drink. There were always some meals that I didn't like, but for the most part, I didn't mind British military rations. When I was in Iraq, I used to eat a lot of American MREs, some of which are good, but some American MREs are pretty bad as well. Was there a banjo one in an MRE, something like that? Well, there was one in particular that I just didn't like. Alan Dawson, best and worst on-screen representations of the SAS in your opinion? The best is probably going to be quite hard for me. The worst, that's easy. Ultimate Force, the TV show with Ross Kemp, which I like to call Ultimate Farce. That is just awful. Probably one of the best representations. It's actually only a very, very small scene in the Harrison Ford movie, and I don't remember I believe it was Patriot Games, where you actually never see the SAS guys. You see them in the movie through satellite imagery, night vision, which I think is a good way to depict the British SAS. American troops would always trade their MREs for our Canadian ones. Yeah, there's always a lot of trading that goes on with ration packs. You trade with your mate because you might have one that he likes and he has one that you like. And yes, that's right, Alan Dawson. The Patriot Games satellite feed. I thought that was a pretty accurate description just of the way they move through that encampment. Medicine Man, I just wanted to say hi. Hope all is well. I don't comment a lot, but thank you for the enjoyable stream and the effort you put into creating it. You're very welcome. Thanks very much there, Medicine Man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did. I put a lot of extra effort into this particular live stream. I wanted to, you know, really sort of set a scene with this one. So Sonic Imperium. Did I meet my wife in service? No. After I left the military, I spent a number of years doing private security work in Iraq. And at the time, I would spend around 9 months of the year in Iraq, which on average was kind of 3 months in Iraq, 1 month off. And during my month off, I was actually living in Thailand. There was a large community of us ex-forces guys working in Iraq who were living in Thailand at the time. I met my wife the first day I ever went there. She was a friend of two of my other friends' wives. And she already knew a lot of the people that I have served with. And I think one of the reasons my relationship with Grace is so strong is that over the years, although she's never been to Iraq, she knows more of the guy. She knows more of the guys I've served with than any of my other family or friends do. And she has been there along my side when we have received the news that some of our friends have unfortunately committed suicide or been killed in action. And these were people that she was very close to as well. So we've been able to help each other through some of the hard times. And between Gracie and my toy collecting, I believe that's why I'm able to now, many years after leaving Iraq, have a fairly stable and happy life. So there you go. I have a lot to thank Gracie for, and I don't tell her often enough. She's an amazing woman. Sinkhole skateboarding, etc. That's a good question. He says, what YouTube channels do I watch? Not many. Retro Blasting is the one channel that I watch a lot of. I enjoy Toy Polloi. I don't watch everything from Toy Polloi. Toy Polloi I kind of go to when I'm doing a restoration. But certainly when he just does his figure reviews, I watch all of those. But I don't watch all of his restorations because it may be a toy that I'm not particularly interested in or something like that. Other YouTube channels that I watch the UFC YouTube channel, so I watch the UFC a lot on TV, but then I go and watch a lot of the post-fight or pre-fight and post-fight stuff there. So other than that, actually not too much YouTube. PC, thank you very much for the kind super chat. It says, greetings from California. Just wanted to thank you for introducing me to the Red Shadows. Currently on the hunt for a complete Kraken. Cool. Speaking of that, I'm trying to get the script for Action Force Part 5 finished. I worked nearly all day on it, but it's such a big script, I still haven't got it finished. I believe I'm going to get that finished after this live stream. I'm going to get it finished this morning, and then I'm going to send it on to Michael French at Retroblasting because he's contributing a couple of bits to it. And the Red Shadows and the Kraken and all those guys will be making a reappearance in Action Force Part 5. So, and Tim Hayes says Michael French is the Star Wars guy. Yeah, Tim, I've actually said that directly to Michael before, and he's like, I'm not the Star Wars guy. People think he is because he's made so many excellent videos about Star Wars, but he's just a collector in general and just a fan of all retro pop culture. So. Craig, yes. Have you ever had any interest in Captain Action? Yeah, I am very, very interested in Captain Action, but that's a very, very expensive toy line to collect, which is why I've actually got a few pieces of Captain Action stuff, vintage Captain Action stuff that actually Timothy Ward, the Ever Faithful moderator, he picked up an Adventure Team G.I. Joe a while ago that had some Captain Action bits in it, and he wasn't too interested in the Captain Action bits, so we actually did a trade where he sent me the Captain Action bits and I sent him some Adventure Team pieces so that he could at least form a sort of a nicely dressed Adventure Team G.I. Joe, which is what he wanted to get out of that lot that he purchased. So. Who is the red-headed mustachioed figure on the pedestal behind you? This guy, you joined late, man. We talked about him earlier. You can rewatch the live stream later on. Well, these questions are going thick and fast now. It may be a small thing, but the Americans saying Iraq really bugs me. Yeah, I call it Iraq. That's how I pronounce it. Not Iraq. That's not how. I don't believe that's how it's pronounced. Paul Richards, with your Action Man collection, what are the items you're always on the lookout for? Mine is the G.I. Joe Japanese Soldier, really struggling to find one in the UK. I have the G.I. Joe Japanese Soldier. To be honest, Paul, I don't collect much Action Man anymore. I've got such a vast collection of it now. There aren't many things. A lot of the things I want are some of the vehicles, which are very hard to get in Australia, and I'm not going to pay shipping for large vehicles. You end up paying double the price for the item that you want to get. So I'm not really. I haven't actively been collecting Action Man for a long time. I'm at the moment trying to complete Action Force. Now that I've sort of completed the Z Force, I'm probably going to move on to the first series and try and complete that. Still picking up a few Star Wars bits here and there, and other things that I need for future videos. So some Black Series stuff I'm collecting. Keith Holmesley, he's an American, and yes, Iraq is hard to hear. I pronounce it Iraq. Yeah, Iraq. Tony, I love that you introduced and educated me on Action Man and Action Force. Thank you, my friend. You're very welcome, Scuba. You're very welcome indeed. George, you don't have to keep sending me stuff, man, but I always appreciate the support. Your generosity has no bounds, man. Steve Gilmore says, your integrity shines through. I've been a fan of your channel for ages. This has been a real joy to watch, and it explains a lot. Thank you, sir. You're very welcome. Gary's Action Man channel. Vehicles aside, what Action Man outfit would you like to get? I need to complete the ceremonial set by getting the number 3 Dress Marine. That's about the only one that I want to get. I had a 40th anniversary outfit on an original figure and decided to sell it a while ago because I didn't want the 40th outfit. I wanted an original outfit, and I've just never got round to reacquiring that. Ronin says, Tony, your channel has definitely got me on the hunt for a Robo Skull. I actually think one of the downsides of that video that I made about the Robo Skull is that they were already expensive then. They've gone even further up in price now. So King Eric, the greatest of all, says, Tony, I might have some Star Wars posters to send you. That'd be awesome, man. If anyone needs the our PO box address, just drop us a link on Facebook, or you can drop us a message and not a link on Facebook, or you can email us at torturedgeniusfilms@gmail.com. Soviet Idiot says, what's the next Analog Toys video? The next video will be Action Force Part 5 on the Z Force. I am determined. I'm not going to work on anything else until I've got that video complete, but it may still take a little while for you to receive that. Yes, Alan, I will have to remake the ceremonial live stream video once I get the number 3 Marine. I actually completely forgot that was missing from my collection until Alan pointed it out after that live stream. So, Soviet Idiot, to be more specific, what's the next toy line? After Action Force, I've got a couple of videos planned. I've got the Star Wars Black Series Snowspeeder in the post. Last time I checked the tracking update, I think it's due to be delivered on Tuesday. But I'm not going to make that video until I've got a couple of additional figures. Obviously, I want the Luke in Snowspeeder outfit as well. So I'm waiting. That's come from a different purchaser, so I'm waiting for that to arrive. I will also be doing a video at some stage about the reissued Kenner Ghostbuster figures. I've got the 4 of them, and I'm waiting for Slimer and Stay Puft to arrive in the post. Because I've always wanted to do a Ghostbusters video. It's something I think is a glaring omission from the video library of this channel, is a Ghostbusters video. So I'm looking forward to that. Beyond that, I've got a number of other ideas. I'd like to do a top 10 Action Force vehicles video at some point. dedicated to George Aitken. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. Bussaw 42, Action Man or Action Force, what is your favourite? Action Man's my favourite, but Action Force is a very close second. Tony, what Action Man vehicles would you like to find, or what do you have? The main one that I would really like, Keith, would be the German armoured car. It's quite a rare vehicle, difficult to get. That's my holy grail Action Man piece at the moment. Would be the German armoured car. I'd love that to put my Action Man Panzer Captain into. Tony, you really inspired me to start an Action Force collection. I learned it all here on Analog Toys. Good on you, Chris. It's a great line to collect. Some parts are quite rare and quite expensive, but a lot of the figures and the more common vehicles are actually, it's one of the cheaper sort of vintage 80s toy lines that's out there to actually collect. So it's pretty good. James Brewster, I'm still looking for that bow for Ninja for you. If I find it, I'll get it out to you. Thanks very much, James. All right, guys, we've been going for an hour and a half, 90 minutes. I need a coffee and probably going to go and smoke a cigarette as well after the stream and try and get out of here without knocking over all these figures. So that's about it, unless anyone else has got any other questions. Bustle 42, what does your wife think about your collection? It's my hobby. It was my hobby when we met, so it was something. She does get annoyed, not so much with the toy collecting, but more with the YouTube channel. She does sometimes get a little bit annoyed at me, the amount of time I spend doing that and taking time away from family time. So I do have to be very conscious of trying to make family time for us, and balance a day job and running the channel and everything. But she says that she's not interested in the toy collection whatsoever. However, she always, when we have guests who may have not been to our house before, if she has some friends round, she's always the one that wants to take them upstairs and show them the collection room. So she says she's not interested in it, but she loves to show it off at the same time. So TNG Animations, thank you very much for the super chat with no comment. Appreciate the support. Scuba Pete, thank you. You're very welcome, I should say. Medicine Man is telling me to have a nice weekend. You guys all have a nice weekend. Saturday morning here. I know it's late. It's Friday evening or Friday night for a lot of you guys. So I hope this has been a good way to start your weekend. Don't forget the Retroblasting live stream tomorrow at 2 p.m. US Eastern Standard Time. The Retroblasting gang are going to be talking about RoboCop. It's a little bit too early in the morning for me, so I'll be watching it on the replay. But certainly if I was up early enough, I would definitely be watching it. So definitely check out the Retroblasting live stream, 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon. Gojatron, this was very informative, Tony. Thank you for sharing your experiences. You're very welcome. Gaz, thanks for a great stream. Good night, everyone. Have a smoke and have a good day, fella. Thanks, Bernard. I'm going to have a coffee and a smoke, and then I'm going to go and finish the script for Action Force Part 5. All right. Take care, guys, and don't forget, who dares wins. All right. I'll see you later.